you, I am also a victim of what is often called post-truth era. In other words, in this era, we don't know what is the truth and what is the falsehood. But anyway, now things are, facts are becoming more clear. I don't know where to begin, but let me, to begin with, point out to you that what we are seeing today is actually a problem not only of politics, of switching loyalties, crossing the floor. It's also a systemic, structural problem. In other words, it's a system of the type of government that we chose. Now, lest someone were to think that I'm condemning this system of government, that's not my intention. All systems of government have their advantages and disadvantages. Our system of parliamentary democracy is built on electoral verdict, no doubt. But unlike the presidential system, where the president is elected for 4 years and he is unremovable, even if he loses support of the members of the Congress. I know people say that the American president can be impeached and convicted. In 240 years, no American president has ever been convicted. Several have been impeached, the first step. So there is security of tenure in the USA. Once you're elected, you may be a Republican, the Congress may be Democratic, it doesn't matter, you are there for 4 years. In our system, however, you may be elected by an overwhelming majority by the electorate. But if a few weeks or few days after you were elected, you lose the support of the majority on the majority of the members of the House, you forfeit your right to govern. So that's why this word backdoor government came on. The front door was, I suppose, the electoral process. Backdoor is the party hoppers who switch from one camp to the other. Party hoppers, defectors, whatever word you want to use for them. So that's one thing that I want to say to you, that we are not here dealing with a simple question of defections or disloyalty. The system allows it. So the way I read the situation is this: for various reasons, which we perhaps could look into later on, for various reasons, the Pakatan Harapan coalition imploded. There was differences between the component parties within Tun Mahathir's own component party. There were differences. So I think it just imploded from inside. It burst, and it was quite clear at the end of the last month that he had lost the confidence of his coalition partners, and therefore he submitted his resignation. Perhaps he was hasty in doing that. Nevertheless, he did. Now, once a prime minister's seat is vacated, whether through death, sickness, resignation, collapse of the coalition, or any other reason, the king cannot allow a vacuum to last long. He cannot say, there's no prime minister, I'm here, I will rule the country on my own. We have a constitutional monarchy. The king must appoint someone. Many people will disagree with me on that, but I believe that in the overall scheme of our constitution, His Majesty is a constitutional monarch. He must have a prime minister to advise him to perform His Majesty's functions. Now, I would lay down for you 2 broad rules, though within each rule there may be lots of variations. Two broad rules will exist. First of all, if there is a vacancy for whatever reason, the king has to appoint someone. Who should he appoint? Number one, if there is a clear-cut majority on the floor of the house, as the king sees it, then he has no choice but to appoint that person. Even though the Perlembagan in Article 43, Clause 2 says that the Prime Minister shall be appointed by the Yang di Pertonagong, who in his opinion, in the Agong's opinion, is likely to command the confidence of the House of Representatives. Sorry, likely to command the confidence of the members. It doesn't say confidence of the House, confidence of the members of the House. There's the difference. So from this wording, it looks like Yang di Pertonagong's opinion. Some people say his opinion is his personal opinion, subjective opinion. I don't think so, because you have to read the second part, who in his opinion is likely to command the confidence of the members of the House. If there is someone who is clearly commanding the confidence of the members of the House, I think the king has no choice. He must appoint that person. So Tun Razak passed away, and the Barisan National at that time immediately chose Dato Hussein On, later on Tun Hussein On. I don't think there was any choice in the Yang di Pertonagong, saying Tun Hussein On had been unanimously agreed as the successor. Tun Hussein On was appointed as the Prime Minister. We have had actually several resignations and one death. Tunku Abdul Rahman resigned or retired. Tun Razak passed away. Tun Hussein On resigned. Tun Abdullah Badawi resigned or retired. Najib was defeated, and now Tun Mahathir has resigned. So that's the first rule. Whoever commands the confidence, the king has to appoint that person. This is not meant to undermine the discretion of the king, but he's a constitutional monarch. If he were to choose someone else who doesn't command the confidence, then on the very first day that Parliament meets, there may be a vote of no confidence. That would embarrass the monarchy. So, if there is a clear-cut leader, I think the king's job is mostly formal, ceremonial. However, now I come to the second situation. If there is no clear majority, for example, it's a hung parliament. After the election, no one has a clear majority. It's entirely possible. You may have 40, you may have 45, I may have 15, there may be some independents, so no one has a majority, hung parliament. Or if the majority party itself is involved in internecine dispute about who should be the leader. In many countries, it happens like that. Though your party won the election, there is no agreement on who should lead the party. Australian states have this problem. Sometimes they are fighting with each other over who will be the party leader. Belgium has been in a state of minority government for more than a year actually. So if there is no clear majority, then the king's discretion comes on. The king has wide number of choices, and really it is his call. We cannot, as a student of constitutional law, say, that's the right decision. It's his call. He could simply ask the resigning Prime Minister, I want you to continue as an interim till situation clarifies. And I think that's what the king did. He asked Tun Mahathir Mohamad to continue. Or the Yang di Pertonagong could have chosen the Deputy Prime Minister to act in the interim period while things settle down. Or the Yang di Pertonagong could have chosen whoever he thought had the largest faction. There is no firm rule that the largest faction must be invited. But he can. So let us say you had 45% of the votes, you had only 40%, and the king could invite the 45%. All right, I give you 10 days. In 10 days, cobble together, put together a government, number of MPs who could support you. It need not be that they join your party. They could from outside support you. There may be independents who are prepared to support you. In Australia, that's what happened actually, 72-72, both sides. So the Prime Minister Julia Gillard, I think was her name, she was told, I give you a few days. The Governor General told her, I give you a few days, come back to me. So if it is 72-72, the convention is the previous Prime Minister will be given the first bite of the cherry, first chance to form the government. So Julia was able to get, I think, 3 independents who agreed to support her, not by joining her party, but they'll say on crucial issues like vote of no confidence, the budget, they will side with her. So she formed it. I would think the first step, it's a matter of opinion, there is no legally right answer. As you are aware, under Article 43, if the Prime Minister loses the confidence, he's got 2 choices. One is to resign and walk away into the shadows, play golf full time, let the king appoint someone else. The second option is called an election, dissolve the Dewan Raj. But under Article 40, Clause 2, B, Clause 2, Subclause B, the king has the right to say, no, this is not the right time for elections. The king has a discretion to refuse. So you were saying election would be the best choice. I would think second best choice. The first best choice would be to convene the House and see if the present Prime Minister, Tan Sri Muhyiddin, commands the confidence. Yes, do bear this in mind that there are about 35 or so parliamentary democracies. This thing happens all the time. We are a very fortunate country. We have no typhoons, we have no cyclones, we have no earthquakes. These kind of political earthquakes happen in countries all the time. Yes, it happened in Perak, it happened in Sabah. In Sabah, Joseph Piring won hands down, comfortably. But within 10 to 15 days, his majority evaporated into thin air because there were some people who hopped from PBS to Barisan National. In Perak, the Pakatan, at the time it was not called Pakatan, it was a PKR-led faction. They won comfortably. They had 31 to 28 seats in the Perak Assembly, but within 1 year, 31-28 became 28-31 because 3 people hopped. It has happened at the state level. It never happened at the federal level. But in the state, we have had governments falling due to votes of no confidence against the Ketua Menteri, Menteri Besar or Chief Minister. In Kelantan, we had Dato' Haji Nasir losing his Chief Ministership, vote of no confidence. We had Joseph Piring, we had of course Nizar, and I forgot the best example, Stephen Kalong Ninkan in 1964. He actually 66. He basically lost the confidence of his assembly persons, and therefore he was asked to resign. He refused to resign. He was sacked. So he went to the court and he said, "Governor cannot dismiss me. Only the assembly can dismiss me." And he won the case in Stephen Kolong Ninkan versus Tun Abang Haji Openg Dan Tawe Sli. It was held that governor can appoint but cannot dismiss. Dismissal must be on the floor of the House. But I'm sure you're aware the Kolong Ninkan decision is now overruled after the Nizar decision. In the Nizar decision, the federal court held that the question of confidence can be determined on the floor or even in other ways. And personally, I support the federal court decision, not because of politics, but because of one particular factor, and that is this: if there is turmoil today in the House, the Prime Minister has lost the confidence either of his own party or of the coalition. You know what he could do? He could go to the Yangi Pertonagong and say, Tuanku, I advise you to prorogue the House. Prorogue means send it on a, not dissolve, prorogue. It goes on a break. Like you all went into prorogation after the exam, and you were away for so long. So prorogue the House, and you know, under Article 55 Clause 1, prorogation can last 6 months. So a Prime Minister facing a vote of no confidence could abuse his power by asking the King to prorogue the House. And in proroguing, as far as we know, the King acts on advice. It's not his discretionary power. Discretionary powers are listed in Article 40, Clause 2, A, B, C. And proroguing is not one of his. So I think if the Prime Minister is proroguing the House for so long in order to avoid facing the House, that would be an abuse of power. So I support the Perak Nizar decision. I know this will be an unpopular view to many people. I think the question of confidence should be allowed to be determined in other ways, not just on the floor of the House. Because as I said to you earlier, the Perlembagaan doesn't say confidence of the House, it says confidence of the members of the House. So doesn't mean the House must sit, members. So yes, that's what happened. Now the King interviewed a most unusual and, may I say, conscientious. When the King was doing that, I was telling myself, my gosh, 222 MPs. He's going to interview 222 MPs in 2 days. That's nearly 111 or so per day. How will you do that? We have never done that. Interview 111 students in 1 day. And he was not having a team. We normally have teams. He was going to do it on his own with the KSN in attendance. Very conscientious action on his part. But the sad thing was the whole interview process became unreliable because many people made one representation to His Majesty and that evening they changed their representation. They gave another statutory declaration to another party. So we had a really fluid situation. The King's intentions were good and it was very conscientious of him to do that. But sadly the whole process became unreliable because MPs were changing loyalties. Now someone may ask, isn't that a criminal offence? To give a statutory declaration in the morning to say, I support X, and in the evening to give another statutory declaration to say, I support Y. Well, generally statutory declaration cannot be false. If it is false, that's a criminal offence. I mean, if I say to you, I'm a citizen of Malaysia in the morning, and in the evening I say I'm not a citizen of Malaysia, I'm a citizen of Antarctica, I could be prosecuted for a criminal offence. But in this type of situation, they are basically saying, I'm supporting X. It doesn't mean I'm married to him, I shall be with him till death do us part. So next day he had changed his mind, and I'm not justifying their behavior. What I'm saying is this: if they were prosecuted, they'll say, well, equation changed. He resigned, someone else took over, I like that person, or government. But hers was clearly not a majority government. Okay, so several choices to the king. He could ask the resigning prime minister to continue. He could ask the deputy prime minister to take over the helm, but that's not necessary because, as I'm sure you're aware, the post of deputy prime minister is not in the constitution. It is a purely conventional post. Third one was he could ask the person with the largest number. Fourth, it need not be the person with the largest number, the person with the second largest number, who may be a less polarizing figure, who may be able to get some independent, some minor small factions to team up with him or her to get the majority. In an extreme circumstances, if both number one, number two are polarizing figures, in an extreme circumstance, what could happen is the king or governor general or president could choose a member of a minority party, but who is non-polarizing, who's not a polarizing figure, and say, I give you 1 week, I give you 10 days to give me a list. And in extreme circumstances, very extreme circumstances, a minority government. There is no pretense that you have a majority or you have a majority. A minority government to hold the fort till elections are called. But you see, elections may not be possible to call in all situations. Security situation may not justify. There may be a medical problem. Like today we are having this virus. There may be financial problems. There may be economic problems. You know, elections cost a lot of money. The last election, I think, cost more than $500 million ringgit, $500 million. And I'm told this election will cost, if it is held immediately, it will cost about 800 million. There were new factions coming in. It was a musical chairs. Or may I jokingly say, I'm sure you did that in your childhood. We all did that. Or that ting ting, ting ting. You change. Did you play ting ting? No, you didn't play. Oh, you don't know what you missed. You don't know what you missed.
I'm trying to find out what it is. I've never heard of it before.
I used to have a ting ting place in my car porch for the children. I used to play with them. Okay, so I think that's what happened. Fluid situation. However, now I feel that the king has made up his mind that, in his opinion, Tan Sri Meheruddin was most likely to command. Please take note, 43 doesn't say the one who commands. No, it says likely to command. In other words, the constitution envisages a scenario where nobody is commanding. But the king has to appoint someone. So he appoints you or you or you who is likely to command. So the king has decided that at that moment, when he made the decision, X is likely to command. Now I think what is best democratically would be for this person to summon parliament as soon as possible to get a vote of confidence in him, or for the opposition to pass a vote of no confidence. I think that would be the most democratic. Yeah, well, minority governments certainly are not ideal because they'll have problems passing laws. one of the most beautiful aspects of democracy, of our type, parliamentary democracy, is that if you are the Prime Minister, you are almost always assured a majority to pass your bills. Unlike in America, where the President cannot be guaranteed even the budget. You know, so often there is a stalemate between the President and the Congress. President proposes, Congress disposes, and the budget cannot be passed. But in our system, the Prime Minister is almost always guaranteed support for his major bills. So minority government is certainly not a good idea. But what if elections don't result in a majority government? Are we going to call another election within 2 weeks' time? And suppose there is still no majority, another 2 weeks' time? So don't forget that elections themselves may result in a fractured parliament. So that's why I'm not so supportive of election at this moment for a number of reasons. I think the citizenry is deeply divided. Though I do not know what the real situation is, because 5 to 6 million new voters are coming in because of the reduction of age. And how these guys and gals are going to decide, only God knows. I'm worried there may be another hung parliament. I'm worried that after we spend 800 million, and as I'm sure you'll agree, elections tend to polarize the country. At this moment, we need to build bridges with each other rather than to build walls and to describe people, or this is describe people with words that may not be so so respectful. We tend to identify people by reference to their race or religion or their region, or by reference to their beliefs. In an election, it's like that. You caricature people, caricature parties. Election divide the nation. So at this moment, I hope that we can avoid that. I think the best solution is a vote of confidence on the floor, and let's get on with the task of rebuilding the economy, rebuilding the education system, rebuilding trust in government. I hope, not that my hopes mean anything, but if I could hope and pray for the country, I would pray like this. I hope the new Prime Minister will continue the anti-corruption drive. Still we come out with a fractured parliament. Then what happens? There may be a Tun Mahathir faction, there may be an Anwar Ibrahim faction, there may be a Mihuddin Amno Bas faction. We do not know, and please don't forget the role that Sabah Sarawak can play. Is any of you from Sabah Sarawak here? Sabah Sarawak has 56 MPs that they won together. 56 is 50% of 112. 112 is the majority. So nearly half of a majority could come from Sabah Sarawak. Sabah Sarawak would be the new determinant of who will get the Prime Ministership, depending on which side. If they were to unite, Sabah Sarawak were to unite, and they were to move to one side or the other, they could make or break the government. So my hope is that the Prime Minister will reach out to all sections of society, pursue anti-corruption policies, reform the education system, build bridges with all the communities, and I'm sure he can. He has lots of experience. That's my prayer for the nation. The but of course we have to keep on praying. Freedom of speech is the heart and soul of a democracy. But of course, freedom of speech does not include freedom to defame, cause disorder, to indulge in hate speech. The way I see the situation, from 1969 till about 2018, freedom of speech was subject to pretty severe restrictions. Of all the freedoms under the Constitution, freedom of speech was the most severely restricted. But I think since 2018, there was a relaxation of the atmosphere. And then there is one more international factor or technological factor, and that is the one you are holding in your hand. The internet came up. You know, at one time, under the Printing Presses and Publications Act and the Barnama Act, Barnama had a monopoly of all foreign news. So if you were the New Straits Times or the Star, you could not print any foreign news. Any foreign news, unless it went through Barnama. The Barnama would sell it to you, then you print. But then the fax machine came on. People could get the information on their fax machine. The printer, the fax machine, and of course later on the phone. Barnama Act had to be amended to break the monopoly of Barnama to receive foreign news, because foreign news was, whether Barnama Act says this or that, it's available on my phone, it's available on my computer, no point, it's in the public domain already. So because of the internet, there has been a tremendous availability of alternative sources of information. So I would think freedom of speech in the last 2 years was certainly on the way up, and for the last 10 years or 15 years was on the way up because of the triumphs of technology. The fax machine, the internet, and all sorts of this social media. However, I have to say to you the other side of the story. Freedom of speech is like a knife. You can use it to cut vegetables, you can use it to stab someone. A lot of people are abusing freedom of speech. The internet has become an instrument for distributing fake news, where in the post-truth era, hate speech is on the rise. So the picture on freedom of speech is mixed. All in all, I'm optimistic that freedom of speech will continue to be enhanced. Not necessarily because the government wants, but because of the triumphs of technology. It'll be difficult for the government, any government, unless it is ruthless, which our government has never been. It will be difficult for them to suppress all internet, all fax machines which can send information, just arrive, punch a button. We can suppress information locally, but tomorrow you travel abroad, you get that information there. We are sending students to study abroad. We cannot send you abroad to study and then at KLIA cleanse your brain, put you through a machine at KLIA and say, all this information is hereby deleted. No, I'm afraid we can't do that. You're going to come back to the country with the ideas
From the outside.
that you had picked up there, the education. We are sending you there to receive education. We are living in a global world. And in matters of education, the government of this country has always had global policies. We send so many students to study abroad. And when they study abroad, they breathe the air of that new land. They inculcate its ideas and they come back here, and there's no way we can censor and cleanse. So I am not pessimistic. My main worry today about freedom of speech is its horrendous abuse. People receive WhatsApp, absolutely false, hateful news, and they send it. And then the recipient send it some more. Within 10 minutes, today is a Friday, on Wednesday night, I finished an interview at 10:30. By 10:40, the interview was on the air. In 10 minutes or so, there are reports of the interview, and they are going. I'm receiving from people. Hey, did you say this on WhatsApp? Did you say this? So, well, I said something. Yes, but this is a report which is highly edited, so a lot of abuse going on. But we have to learn to live with it, and I support laws against hate speech. I support laws against pornography. I support laws against blasphemy. I think free speech is not an end in itself. Free speech to promote scientific ideas, literary ideas, but free speech to promote hatred, hate speech, to denigrate others, defamation, I think we need to have, not only Malaysia, all countries need to have some limits on free speech. I can't be allowed in a crowded cinema hall to shout, "Fire, fire!" That would cause panic. Just giving this example. People indulge in hate speech in so many ways actually. Sometimes giving false news just to incite people to hate others on grounds of race or religion or gender or beliefs. So I think there must be more regulation of free speech. Regulation need not come from the government. It could be self-regulation. For example, we could have a press council. A press council censoring the papers if they abuse free speech. For example, newspapers always print sensational news because it sells well. There should be some responsibility. So breach, invasion of people's privacy, defamatory material that would cause disorder or national security, breach of national security. I think that has to be controlled. I've said that in my class. Freedom per se has no value. It's what freedom is for. It's the use to which it is put. It's the sense of responsibility and restraint with which it is exercised. That's freedom. Freedom has to go with restraint. So I'm not pessimistic about freedom of speech. At the moment, there is too much freedom to be irresponsible. And I think that needs to be restrained. For example, I note the Bar Council has a site. They print lots of material and you can comment, but you must disclose your name. You must disclose your identity. I think that's good. So you whack me for my article, at least I know who you are. So I can sue you for defamation. But on WhatsApp, on the internet, redirecting it right away, you must examine it first. For example, the other day,
some people falsely accused that the learned Chief Justice of the country had gone to the Istana when all this politics was going on. And others said, how can the Chief Justice go to the Istana during this time of politics? Actually, the Chief Justice went to the Istana as a matter of coincidence, because the Chief Judge of Sabah Sarawak, Tan Sri David Wong, had retired, and a new Chief Justice of Sabah Sarawak was being sworn in. And of course, at the swearing in ceremony, young Ahmad Arif, Chief Justice, had to be present. So she didn't go there to advise the king on the appointment of the Prime Minister, not at all. He went there for the swearing in. But it's going round, and people are passing it to each other. So this kind of irresponsibility needs to be regulated. Yeah, well, yes, indeed. Several factors. Number one, we are a young country. 62 years is not a long time in the life of a nation. Our democracy is young. Also, bear this in mind, this is the, what's the word for it?
Millennial?
It's called pressure cooker effect. Pressure cooker was boiling, steam was picking up, you remove the top. What happens? Everything escapes, isn't it? That's what happened to our country. For about 50 years, we were strongly controlled. Then the lid was removed. When the lid was removed, boom, things are escaping now. So this is the pressure cooker situation we were in. The country was under severe control. Those controls were relaxed. So now everything is escaping, including irresponsibility. It happened to Soviet Russia during Gorbachev. Communism was very rigidly a controlling society. Gorbachev relaxed a little bit. You know what happened to Soviet Russia? The state collapsed. They couldn't take the freedom of trade and commerce, the freedom of speech, political freedom people had. They couldn't take it, the state collapsed. We are undergoing a similar situation where after decades of governmental control, we are now tasting freedom, and we are savoring it a little bit too much. It's like having very good food and overeating. Remain politically active, but within the law. I don't support, don't necessarily support demonstration on the streets, but by all means, write letters, write memos, write articles, organize yourself into seminars, write a memorandum to the Prime Minister on your hopes and wishes. Maybe there should be a party, political party set up by the young people. Now, after all, you have a right to even be elected, you know, at age 18. Not just to vote, you can get elected at age 18. I think there should be parties and groups set up, not just on basis of race or religion. A green party, a workers' party, a women's party, a consumers' party. I think we should set up associations, assert yourself indeed, make your opinion felt. Don't let old people like us tell you what to do. I think you are educated, God has given you these gifts of intelligence, the country has provided you with education, assert yourself, but do it peacefully. And at this particular moment, I personally think an election is not a good idea. I think we should give our support to the government appointed by the Yang di-Pertunagon, but on the condition that they obtain a vote of confidence on the floor of the House. But if that vote cannot be obtained, then I suppose only the choice then is an election.